Big shout out to Bean Working Espresso down in Skyring Terrace, Newstead.
Best coffee in the game.
Best absolute coffee in the game. Hook in the Platform podcast, and any listeners up with a 10% discount.
Shout out.
Shout out to Yolanda.
Yolanda.
That was a mouthful.
Their coffee's real fucking good. Get
Best coffee in the game, by far. Just opened up Skyring Terrace. You can order ahead and mention the Platform podcast for a 10% discount. This is the Platform podcast with B-Bad and Brandon.
Oh, we've got to talk for the podcast.
Right, not to test.
Not just 2 hours of silence.
Is this the point I say, what am I doing here?
No.
No, usually you're probably thinking it.
You're like, why am I?
Later
Right.
is when you say it.
Okay.
Like, if I signed up for... No, that's when you go home later and your wife says, oh, how was he? So I fucking don't know what I was doing there.
Or she'll find me in the shower, fetal position. My bum.
Or she'll start calling you 6 hours in going,
Where are you?
I thought you were just going on a podcast. Oh, no, I'm still there.
My favourite was when we had Mace and Dino on, and then their friends said to them, what's a podcast? And they also didn't really know, to be very honest.
Yeah, they kind of walked in and was like, oh, there's a camera, there's some microphones. What are we doing?
Anyway.
Welcome to the Platform podcast, and we welcome very special guest Pete.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay, there's an applause that Niall will put in. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. A party of one.
Now, we've got one of the biggest questions in the world for you.
That you've ever done. Because how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I am 56.
56.
Really?
This will probably be the biggest
shit.
question you've ever answered until we've had 10 more bigger questions later that'll beat this question.
All right, I'm ready.
21 words, Mr. Pete. Who you are, what you do and or have done, starting very shortly.
Mm-hmm.
We count all of the sounds that you make. So if you cough, we're going to count it. You give it a we're going to count it. Are you ready?
How many words?
21.
words.
That's all you get. I'm counting them. I'll give you little numbers every now and then. Or you can just look to me and I'll tell you the number.
Ready? Go.
My name's Pete. I spent 34 years in the Army. I've now retired for 5 years, and I now drive council buses for a living.
You got 3 words if you want them.
Love it here.
Oh, 21.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Best 21 ever.
Oh, thank you.
100%.
Yep.
100%. That was like really smooth. Up to 18 was really smooth. You hit a little bit of rough patch and you landed that plane really well.
Yeah. I feel like 21 words is not enough to sum up what Pete's done.
I know. I was like, I just met Pete before the podcast started, and 5 minutes of chatting, and there was about 6 or 7 different topics we could easily talk about.
For hours.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll have enough time.
That's right.
Or enough batteries.
Correct. It is one of my faults. I do like talking.
It'll be here for 2 days straight, and the boys like, can we go home? No.
Unreal. So 34 years service, 5 years out now. So that's 39 years ago, if my math is correct, you joined.
That's right. It's 17 years of age. Straight after high school.
Straight out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Are you Brisbane born?
Yes, wasn't born in Brisbane, born in Melbourne, and my father was in the military.
Yep.
We then moved to Brisbane when I was 4 years old.
Yep.
Don't remember any of that. And then we lived around here, and I ended up over at Capalaba.
Yep.
And then from there, Camp Hill High School. I believe it's now called Whites Hill College.
Yep.
And when I finished high school, I was still 16 years of age, and I really wanted to join the Army. So I had to wait until I turned January, or turned 17 in January the next year.
Day one, 17, were you in the recruitment office saying, hey, let's go?
I was indeed. It was on my birthday. I walked straight in.
Oh, wow.
And, I said, my name's Pete Sheldon. I'm 17 years of age today, and I would like to join the Army. And this old warrant officer behind the desk, and a warrant officer is generally a man that's been in for a long time, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had one eye. I think he had one arm missing, and he was on crutches with half a leg.
Yes.
And he had rows and rows of campaign medals on.
He's done some things.
And he looked me up and down and he said, is that right, champion? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, get back from the desk. Get back. And I just kept walking backwards.
Yeah.
And he said, right, stop there, turn around.
Yeah.
And I turned around. And I faced him again. He said, now turn the other way. I turned the other way and faced him. And he once again looked me up and down. He said, yeah, you be right. Have a seat. then I just signed up, and I think 2 months after
That was the interview.
Well, it wasn't quite. But he just wanted to see my cut of my jib, I guess.
Yep.
And he liked what he saw.
Yep.
Not that I was much. I was 72 kilos back then, wringing wet.
Yep.
And just still a kid. I still had a bum fluff on my lip.
That's unreal.
All right.
And so you obviously went to high school and stuff in Brizzy?
All through here,
All through Camp
and finished
Hill.
year 12 because I couldn't leave any earlier because I wasn't old enough to do much.
Fuck.
And so my parents said, well, you might as well finish year 12 while you're here. And a good job I did because I actually graduated.
Yep.
And that certainly helped when I was in the army. So
And what did you do in the army? Were you enlisted into like infantry or?
I was indeed, correct.
Yep.
Good guess. Yep, I was an infantryman from day one, and I stayed infantry for my 34 years.
Really?
During that time, I spent many years in infantry battalions, and I guess I need to sort of talk it in a way where everyone can understand. A battalion's a group of 600.
Wow.
600 soldiers is called a battalion. And so I joined a battalion here in Brisbane, actually, back here at Nogra, the 8th 9th Battalion.
Yep.
And then between that, the 6th Battalion, which is also here at Nogra, and the 3rd Battalion, which was in Sydney. Out of my 34 years, I spent 15 years in infantry battalions. And that's a long time. Normally, an infantryman in his career would maybe spend, 5 to 10 years tops. But I just happened to be one of those, lucky or unlucky, depends how you want to look at it.
Yep.
But I could never get out of a battalion, which is great because it was, where all the action was.
Yep.
Where you learnt your craft and enjoyed your time.
And was your dad your influence, or so to speak, to
Absolutely,
join?
Johnny. Yeah, absolutely. Because when I was growing up, it was nothing but an army environment.
Yeah.
So my dad always had his mates around, and so I was always listening in the background to their great stories of where they were, what they did. And he was a veteran of the Second World War and also the Malayan emergency as well in the 1950s. And we had friends that were pretty much the same, and Vietnam veterans as well.
Wow.
And so I just grew up with all these great stories.
Yep.
And all I could remember ever doing was wanting to join the military. So
That's awesome.
What was his role?
his role was firstly in the Navy.
Yep.
So he was in the Second World War with the British Navy, the Royal Navy.
Yep.
And he saw service all through the Pacific and the Mediterranean. And then he came to Australia once he got out.
Yep.
And then became a boilermaker and didn't like doing that. And then just saw a recruiting sign with the Australian Army and said sign up. So he did. Took his trade into the Army, so he became a vehicle mechanic.
Yeah, right.
And he spent 20 years in the Army as well.
Oh, wow.
And then my brother joined up.
As well.
Oh, yeah, he spent a good 20 years in the Army as well. And my sister, there's only 3 of us in the family, she married a soldier, so...
Of course.
And, of course, icing on the cake was my mum was also in the Army as well.
Wow.
So we come from a massive military family.
What did your mother do?
She was a cook.
Yep.
And mum and dad met back in the 50s, 1950s, down in Victoria.
Wow.
And
so that's, just after World War II.
Yeah. And so, then they had a family, and then, of course, the 2 sons went and joined up, and they were just more than happy with that because they knew that the Army's just an extension of a family.
Yeah.
And that's how we were treated, we were well looked after.
Yeah. And what did your brother do?
He did everything. He went to infantry for a while.
Yeah.
Then he went to the catering corps, became a cook.
Yeah.
Then after that, he went to aviation corps, which is helicopters.
Yeah, wow.
And he was sort of doing aircraft handling, and what that is just refueling of the aircraft and getting it prepared for flight. And then they did a aircrew observers course. And what that means is the small Kiowas, which is like the news choppers you see flying overhead. He sits beside the pilot and he does all the observations.
Oh, wow.
So if they're looking for enemy or calling in, support with artillery or fast jets coming in, well, he is the man that does all the calling of the missions. And they also fly as well. So so he's not classed as a pilot, but in emergency, if the pilot is injured,
He knows how to do it.
he can then take over and fly and land the thing.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Did you guys ever get to work together?
We did, absolutely. And it was in the 80s, he actually got posted to the same battalion I was in. And he went to the pipes and drums because most units have their own internal music. And so it was a bagpipe band. And part of their duties was to also be stretcher bearers. So when we deploy out in the field and do your job as an infantryman, then they'd attach themselves to a platoon. And a platoon is a group of 30 men. So you'd have a stretcher bearer / medic that would go with you and then do treatment in the field when it comes to ailments and anything else. So my brother David actually got attached to my platoon. And because I was a platoon sergeant at the time, in the platoon headquarters you have the platoon commander, who's a young graduate from Duntroon, a platoon sergeant who's the old bloke, and the medic. So it was the two Sheldon brothers in the
Running
one
the show.
headquarters. That's right. And because
Did you outrank him though?
I did, yeah, I was a sergeant. He was a private.
Was that
How did he like that?
Oh, well, he had to take orders.
Were you the older
Is what
brother?
it is.
I was the older brother.
So he's used to it. He's
so
used to
in
it.
terms of hierarchy,
Yeah.
it was either going to be one way. That was me. But the thing was, we looked so much alike back then. Everyone mistook us for twins.
Yeah, right.
So I was, in the middle of the position, sort of, brewing up or whatever I was doing. David would be walking around checking the soldiers, how they were travelling in terms of, like blisters and all that sort of business. Someone would get him confused with me and say, "Hey, Sarge, can we do that?" And he'd say, "Yeah, off you go, fill your boots." And he'd come back and I'd say, "How'd it go, bro?" And he goes, "Oh, look, mate, I just told one section they can go and put their sentry out there."
Yep.
"You can't do that, man." And he said, "Oh, it's all right, it's tactically sound." And sure enough, he was right.
Yep.
But the fact was, and the platoon commander would come back from orders, ready to give a set of orders to get the platoon moving.
Yeah.
And he'd go to my brother. He'd say, "Okay, Sarge, what you need to do is get the platoon together." And I'd be sitting against a tree and I'd go, "Over here, boss." "Oh, did I do it wrong again?" "Yep, get over here. I'm the sergeant, he's the private. Don't muck it up." Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's unreal.
Must have been a pretty good experience though, getting to share that with your brother, obviously with the strong family history.
Oh, look, absolutely. And we were lucky enough to be deployed to East Timor back in 1999 together as well. Separately, he was across with aviation and they were doing all the aerial work. And I was with the 3rd Battalion as an infantry unit. And for a while there, they were attached to us. And a few times we were side by side, because at night and in the morning you stand too, which means everyone's got their weapons ready for any sort of action if it may happen. So while you're standing too, you're there with everyone sort of laying down facing out, and here's my brother lying beside me with our weapons facing out, with live ammunition, and we're looking at each other saying, how surreal is this? Here we are, we joined back in 1981, 1982, here it's 1999.
Jeez.
And we're now on operations in the country overseas.
It would have been absolutely surreal. Like, obviously, growing up hearing all those stories, you're talking to your brother like that's going to be us one day, and then it fucking is.
Well, pretty much, yeah. I guess it didn't really strike us until well after we retired from the military. We catch
obviously
up
in the moment you're kind of like more alert than anything.
That's right, yeah. But when you sort of reflect back on it, you go, wow, we've added to that piece of history from the Sheldon files when it comes to people going overseas on operations.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
So what's like, to go back to almost the very start, from sign up, what was it like going down to your first sort of, what do they call it, basic?
Recruit training.
Yeah, recruit training like that.
Frightening, absolutely frightening. Because remember, I was only a 17-year-old kid, and I was only 17 by 2 months at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about life.
So you're there with men.
Oh, absolutely. And I was the youngest kid in the platoon of 30 being trained. I still hadn't really weaned off being in my family.
Yep.
So for me, it was a culture shock, and it really was. It threw me for a long time. Took me out of the 6 weeks we were there, or 12 weeks, sorry. It took me probably about 6 weeks to finally sort of understand what I was all about and how to actually do the job. And then it became easy after that. But for that first 6 weeks, homesickness was just terrible because back then, no social media. Yeah, you only had letters that you wrote.
You
That's right.
send a letter, and lucky you might get a letter in return.
Correct.
Maybe.
Yeah, and you have phone privileges, so you can only ring up once, every 1 or 2 weeks.
Yep.
And you were limited to, a short time on the phone as well. So really, it was very hard.
Yeah.
But because you're going from one family, in a sense, to another family, and once you realise that, hey, this is the new fam, and everyone's in the same boat. And because I was the youngest, I sort of, got taken under the wing by a couple of the older guys in the platoon, and it was fine then. It was really good. But still, like I said, it was a culture shock.
Is it still, because I know of a couple of friends, it's Kapuka now.
Correct.
Was it still Kapuka back then?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, same place, and it's pretty much the same course.
Yep.
Still 12 weeks in length.
Yep.
And but there's a whole lot of changes coming in, which is good because back then, it's probably wrong to say it was brutal, but it was certainly tough in terms of how you were treated. And nowadays, people have to abide by just common law when it comes to,
maybe not so much common law back then,
and harassment. But back then, no, it was an open slather.
Yep.
And you just had, lots of unfair treatment because you were just a recruit.
Yep.
And in the Army's eyes, at that point in time, you were still learning the ropes.
Yep.
So if the sergeant or the corporal, in fact, the corporal's the guy that looks after 10 of you in a section. So if the corporal didn't like the way your rooms were looking, he would just come in like a cyclone, rip all your lockers apart, and then you'd spend, another 3 or 4 hours that night re-ironing all your clothes and getting it set up again for the next morning's inspection.
And then he'd probably say it's still no good, go again.
Yeah, that's right. But back then, you didn't know any better. For me, because I never experienced life, I figured this is the army.
Yeah.
So I had to adapt quickly. Might have been a bit different, and some of the older guys I do remember struggled with that because they actually had apprenticeships. They've actually worked for 5 to 10 years before they joined up, so they knew what was sort of right and what was wrong when it comes to just basic, treatment of people.
Yeah.
Whereas I just walked in with my eyes wide open and just accepted, hey, this is the fact. All right, and
it was almost easier for you because you could just go and go.
I reckon you're right.
I don't have any other prior experience to base this off.
That's right.
Did you get any advice from your father going in? Do you remember? Did he give you any worldly wisdom of what you were in for?
Oh, look, he said many things. The biggest one he said was, don't volunteer for anything. And that's good. I remember that. He said, keep your mouth shut. Don't be a gob. Don't try and lip off. And the third one, which was probably more important, and it has worked, was something that was a bit left field. And he said before I left, he said, mate, one thing you've got to do, look after your back. No matter what you do, always think about protecting your back. And I said, in what way? Thinking that, someone's going to stab you in the back?
Yeah.
And he said, no, he said, just with simple lifting and it resonated with me. And up until, my whole time in the military, people were hurting themselves terribly and really doing some damage because they were picking up, 45 kilo packs wrong, throwing them on, whereas, there's a technique to putting it on correctly. Takes a bit longer. But I did that for my entire career and now I've got no back issues. So
and that'd be sort of stuff that allowed you to have that long career.
Yeah.
When some of that stuff might have sort of ended or shortened some sort
so many
of careers.
people had to be discharged through medical reasons because they, stuffed knees, ankles, backs, necks.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of it, especially out of the army, like medically discharged because
absolutely.
of fucked backs.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when I first joined up, during that probably the first 10 years, you were looked after really well because if you got injured, the army said, we'll accept that because you were injured on our time. Because back then, there was so many jobs people can do, going into the clerical stream or other streams, the Q stream, which is like quartermaster, warehousing, and work behind the scenes. But nowadays, everything is sort of, given out to civilian agencies. And so you're only employed as a soldier, and that's it.
If you can't soldier, you're out, essentially.
Yeah. And I was in a job, probably 10 years ago now, human resource management, which is soldier career management. And one of my jobs was being the delegate for the Chief of Army to make decisions on people who had to leave on medical grounds.
Oh.
And that was a hard job because, you look at all their careers, you had to even interview them at times. And these poor men were in tears because their whole livelihood is about to be ripped out from under them. And there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to stick with policy and say, well,
Policy says.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fuck.
Damn.
Especially when it is something like, a knee or a back that's not necessarily broken as such, but it's like, that's got to be hard.
Correct, because if you can't carry weight and do your job as a soldier, and fight when you have to fight. But mind you, the compensation and everything else that soldiers get is really good and very generous. But still, that doesn't equate to staying in the military.
No, especially when, as you said before, like for a lot of them, it's their identity.
Correct, absolutely, yeah.
And have that ripped out from you.
I know, yeah. And that was one of my greatest joys, is putting my uniform on each day. That was just great.
Yeah, far out. So how many times were you deployed overseas?
On operations, twice. One was in East Timor in 1999, and the second time was 2008 in Sudan. With the United Nations, keeping a peace there.
Yeah.
Two totally different war zones. Timor was really good because we were there doing a job to get the Indonesians out as nicely as we could and to stop all the rebel groups and killing the Timorese. And we achieved that, which was very good. And Sudan was a different kettle of fish. It was just trying to maintain the peace through tribes that were just at war, and they were always going to be at war, and you just had to stand back and allow it to happen. And that was very difficult for me because we had battalions, and like I said before, a group of 600 to 800 were supplied to the United Nations by a lot of third world armies. So you had these third world armies going into a third world country, all having the same thoughts of third world ideas when it come to keeping the peace. And it really was difficult because they contributed to a lot of issues over there as well. Whereas a lot of the staff officers, which I was, which meant you're working at the headquarters doing planning, we always said if you come from a skiing or swimming nation, so anything in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, you trained in a better way, so you understood how to deal with all these issues. We had so many deaths recorded. It was just frightening, and yet the whole world didn't know.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing. And even when I was there, I actually, for my own mental well-being, I counted up the amount of deaths that were reported over a 6-month period that we actually knew about. And this was just civilian deaths, and it was 1,200. Now, that's a lot. No matter how you look at it, that is a lot. And that was only with the small 10% of the country that we covered. So you multiply that by 10%, and you're probably in the ballpark with how many deaths were actually occurring. And we're talking about villages actually being massacred because a tribe would come through and then want that land for grazing for their cattle. And, of course, the people in the way would say, no, you're not going to have it.
So just kill them all.
And they just mow them down. And you also had that other lunatic, Joseph Kony, that was running around at that point in time. And he was sort of sitting right there amongst Uganda, Sudan, the Central African Republic. And he had his child army of kids, and he was just running amok. And so he was entering Sudan any way he wanted to, in any direction, causing mayhem, and then back into Uganda. And just, so the whole thing was just very messed up.
Fucking hell.
How much time did you spend away, like for those 2 visits that you travelled?
It was, I think about 7 months in Sudan and 6 months 7 months in East Timor and 6 months in Sudan.
Yeah, wow.
That's
But out of my entire career, I did a bit of, just the other day, in fact, when I knew I was actually going to be on a podcast, I worked out how many years I've actually spent away, because you do it on courses, you go deploying here in Australia on exercises to continue your skill sets, you go overseas on other different sort of visits, visiting different countries and looking at their military. So out of 13 or 34 years, I spent 13 years away from my family.
Wow.
Yeah, in total. So that's a lot. And
Sorry, you said 13 years.
13 years. And most of that was during when my kids were growing up. So my son, for instance, he was born in 1990, in March, 1st or 2nd of March 1990, and I only seen him for 6 weeks that particular year because I was away. But that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And you accepted that. And my wife, since she married me, and she came, and she was an army brat as well, so her dad was in the army as well.
Of course.
So she understood.
Yeah.
And when the kids were born, they just knew Dad went away. So all through their schooling, we got posted continually, but they just knew that. Dad was always away, and that's just how it was.
It's a massive help. I'm sure, obviously, you said your wife had come from that army background as well, so she could understand why you had to go, obviously, and then
Certainly.
help with the kids cope with it as well, because you see it all the time. It's not nice, but it is what it is.
Oh, absolutely. And look, full credit to Kerry. She was just a marvel. She brought the kids up. And I was the one playing catch up, because I'd come home after being 8 weeks away or 3 months away in Malaysia, for instance, and I would remember the family as it was back then. But Kerry had moved on, and they're up to here now.
Yeah.
The kids have a bit more, freedom of movement. They can do this, they can do that. And I'm back here. And, of course, I'd be sort of, getting upset saying, well, why are the kids doing this now? And then so she'd have to sit me down, okay, righto.
This is
you
what's
idiot.
happened.
Yeah, you idiot. Overseas you might be a legend, back home you're just a dill. Oh, right.
She's grounding you right back
That's
down.
right, yeah. She'd just drag me back and say, righto, champion, this is how it now works. The kids are here, catch up. And it worked. It was a good
Kids
system.
are here. You're here. Get to here.
Pretty much.
Did you meet your wife through the army?
No, she was. We just met through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay.
And just one day and it was just by pure chance, and we still marvel at that even now. My parents lived over at Capalaba at the time,
Yep.
and our mutual friend knew Kerry and knew me, and she just said to Kerry, "Oh, come and meet, Pete's mum and dad."
Yep.
And because they're nice people, I just happened to be home on weekend leave.
Oh,
And it was just one of those classic things where you both saw each other.
Yep.
And the sparks flew, and I just said, "Oh, I like the way she looks."
Adorable.
yeah. Oh, isn't it cute?
Fucking
Yep,
cute.
that's right. And I'm going to get this wrong and get in so much trouble. But 34 years, yes.
34 years.
years married,
Wow.
and we're still going strong, so it's lovely.
That's
We'll
incredible.
get confirmation from Kerry to confirm. Just make sure that was 34.
You can. It is 34.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Just checking. Don't want you to get in trouble.
No, I'm just acting confident. It's probably not. It's close enough.
So you said, so obviously 13 years of travel, you must have had quite an adventure, like not just to post your postings, but just everywhere you went around the world.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the best part about the military. Everywhere you went, you got looked after, because we were on show for the other armies in the world we went to, but they also looked after you because they didn't want to look poor either.
Yep.
So everywhere you went, you had lots of cultural activities, and you did lots of interaction with other defence forces. So
Yep.
you'd have what they call combined exercises. So, a small company of us, say 120 men, would be with a battalion of Malaysians.
Yep.
And then out of that, then they'd send individuals out to be with a Malaysian section of 8 to 10. And that's what happened to me back in 1982. I was just a young 18-year-old.
Wow.
And
in Malaysia.
In Malaysia. And we got the word that it was the 28th Battalion, Royal Malay Regiment, wanted to do an exchange of 6 or 7 soldiers, and we just swap over. Then they become part of the Australians and we become part of the Malaysians. And so the platoon sergeant just came down to where we were all laying around and he said, right, I'm after one volunteer, Sheldon. What am I doing, Sarge? And he said, don't you worry, champion, you're going to enjoy this. And so I spent 2 weeks with the Malaysians doing what they do. No one can speak English. I couldn't speak Bahasa.
What's that like with that language?
Oh, it was hilarious because I just sat there looking around with big wide eyes and these fellas, looking at this white skinny kid and they just look at me saying, is he a real soldier? Look at him, he doesn't even have to shave. And so, but it was really good because I had to eat their rations and I didn't know what I was eating.
Yep.
Because, again, it was all just in what you see now even on travel shows. There's a small plastic bag was delivered, lots of rice and lots of crunchy things that was very salty. I didn't know what it was, but you ate it.
If you ate it, you weren't hungry.
Yeah, that's right. But one night I did make the mistake of turning my torch on and having a quick look because I thought, what is this?
Yeah.
Nothing but fish heads. And you think,
oh, God.
Fish heads? Why can't you just give me a bit of fish? No.
Just the heads.
So I did note, though, I was the only one crunching and everyone else wasn't. So maybe it was the skinny white Australian kid.
You got
the fish heads.
You got the fish heads while everyone else is eating the
I
fish.
suspect that. And also the platoon commander wanted to sleep with me as well. So that was a bit of a hassle.
Yeah. He liked the look of you.
He did. He honestly did. And it was just one of the... Because he can speak broken English. And I remember clearly one day he came up to me and he said, oh, Peter. And I said, oh, how are you? And so he said, oh, very good. He said, now, when we finish this exercise... And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, you and me will go out together. And I said, oh, yeah, but I'll probably have to clear it through my boss because, you're a lieutenant and I'm just a private.
Yeah.
That's not real cool.
You got no idea what he's on about.
Yeah. No, not at all. And he said, so, and then after that, you come back to my room. And I said, yeah. And then he said, we spend the night together. And I said,
no.
With you. And he just nodded, what, in your bed? He just nodded, really, yeah, that's what we do.
Very polite, that's what happens.
I just saluted. No, thank you, sir. See you later. And couldn't run back to our platoon fast enough. Sarge!
Saved me.
Told him all about it. He just laughed. He said, mate, I figured that would have happened.
That's why he said you. You're the pretty one.
Yeah, you're the sacrificial lamb. Off you go.
Oh, that is fucking great. That is intense. Whew. I don't know if I can recover from that. And what was that, 2 years into you being in the army?
Yeah, my second year.
You stuck around for another 32 years.
Well, out of curiosity, I think. It's got to get better.
What else could happen? Yeah.
Who else is going to invite me into their tent?
That's right.
Oh,
do you have a specific moment on tour or in the army that's always brought back to yourself, or you can always say like this was a really good moment for me? I'm sure there's many.
Oh, there's many. Yeah, and it was actually just before I left the army, actually, probably about 2014. I was here at Nogra, and it was just this, I was at, they call the headquarters 7 Brigade, and 7 Brigade is like a unit that looks after all the battalions and artillery and tanks in the brigade area. And that's like, 2,500, 3,000 troops. And since I was a staff officer working at the headquarters, I was a major that just sort of did lots of investigations and whatever the brigade commander, who's a brigadier, wanted me to do. And there was this young soldier who was locked up in a psychiatric hospital. And it was the commanding officer of a particular unit that wanted him discharged psychologically. And so I had to go and start the initial interview process and see what it was all about. And so it was the mental hospital over at next to Carindale in Belmont. And so I just sat down with this young soldier and we started chatting, and just something just didn't seem to add up. He was, in my humble opinion, and I'm no medical expert, but he was not crazy. He was not nuts. He was just an ordinary young kid. And the more I talked to him, the more it just worked out that he's being railroaded. Because I spent time in Human Resource Management, Soldier Career Management Agency, so I understood the policy and procedures, and this was a simple way of discharging someone without going through the full process of, because there's a whole lot of things you have to do before you discharge someone administrationally because he's a poor soldier. A quicker way is to say, declare the man insane, and out he goes. essentially. And so I went back to the brigade commander, as you sort of back brief, and I just said, look, something's just doesn't smell right with this, and I'm not saying that this man is, should be discharged. And so the more I interviewed, the more information I got, it was very clear that he was just being set up to just get railroaded the quickest way. So I wrote a report and, in fact, saved his skin. And he's still in the military now.
That's unreal.
And but it was good because I was leaving, so I had no investure in this. I could have just easily just said, "Yep, get rid of it."
Get out.
But it just felt wrong. The whole thing was wrong, and so it just goes back to your basic tenets. How you operate.
Yep.
If it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck and smells like a duck, it is a duck.
It is a duck.
And do something about it.
You said so. Your last posting as infantry was 3. Is that what you said?
No, it was 6 RAR, the 6th Battalion here in Brisbane. But I was before then. I was
3.
in the 3rd Battalion, which
They
was
jumped out of the planes.
it was a parachute battalion.
So you were a paratrooper.
Yes, I was a paratrooper as well. So chuck that in.
That's the
Did you leave
Red
that out?
Beret.
Did you leave that out in the 21 words? I think
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah, I did.
Jesus.
Yeah, what? That's Red Beret. What colour
Yes,
is that? Yeah,
maroon. We wore maroon berets.
I had a friend who was 3
Yeah,
as well.
that's right.
Similar my age. He, obviously not when you were in.
But and
What
that
was that like? Going to training to go to there
it was
because you're jumping out
hard.
planes.
You jumped out of planes, pretty much.
Planes, you're meant to stay in them, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That's
Just
right.
making sure.
No.
And some of the jumps are low jumps too, right?
They're all low.
Yeah,
so
super
they're all,
low.
So they're all done at 1,000 feet.
How many jumps have you done?
I've done 26 jumps.
Jesus.
But many people, that's just nothing compared to some people that have spent time in the...
I've seen the videos. There's like multiple people coming out on it.
That's right. And so they have jump clubs in the 3rd Battalion. So anyone that's done 200 jumps, they get the name on the board. The 300 jump club, the 500 jump club. Not many people are on it, but that's a lot of jumps, considering the amount of effort that goes into a jump and the amount of injuries that are sustained.
Yeah, I was going to say the injury risk must be ridiculous on those.
It is, and it's an accepted fact. So when they do the planning, they know that there's going to be a small percentage of people who will rupture knees, break legs, backs, necks, because...
On every jump,
Every time you jump, it's under duress, it's under strain. You're carrying equipment that almost, in fact, it exceeds the actual weight limit of the parachute you're using. So the parachute normally is rated at about 120 kilos you can suspend under it. Most people, soldiers, are like you two, Bill. So what?
Small? No.
Yeah, no.
100 kilos plus a 40 kilo pack.
So you're 100 kilos straight up.
Holy
now,
shit.
your main chute and your reserve chute are 20 kilos combined. Your equipment you jump with, to operate for 72 hours is 45 kilos. Your weapon is 5. All of a sudden, a lot of people are jumping with their body weight.
Please excuse my ignorance here, but why just not a bigger parachute?
Because that was the big parachute. The next one's up a cargo chute, and then you can't carry it. It's got to be on your back as you exit the aircraft.
Yep.
Do you remember what your first jump was like?
It was fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first jump was like being at the Ekka on a ride. The second jump was horrific because you knew it was coming. So the first jump, it was awesome because I was a sergeant at the time, and so they sort of jumped you out the aircraft in sort of rank order. So I was the sergeant, so I was number 1 in the stick, and a stick is just a group of guys.
Yeah.
And so 1,000 feet up on the back of a Caribou, that's a smaller plane with the 2 engines.
Yeah.
They lowered the back ramp.
And you just jump off that.
Yeah. And so you've got your static line, you're hooked up to the line itself, and you're marching to the back of the plane, and they tell you to stop, and you're just staring straight out. And the instructor says, whatever you do, do not look down.
Of course you look down.
It's like, don't touch the wet paint, So anyway, I'm just standing there, and I can see the red light was still on, because when the light goes green, that's when you exit. And I was just staring out, and the plane's just bouncing up and down. You can see the horizon, and it was down at Jarvis Bay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you can see the ocean, and you're looking out going, gee, this is all right. And then you're hearing the words, don't look down, don't look down. Well, I've got to look. But my feet are like that, right on the edge of the ramp.
Fuck.
So as you look down, you're now looking down 1,000 feet at the airfield going underneath you. And as I looked down, then I just started to get wobbly and busy. And I'm just going, oh no. And the sergeant who was dispatching saw me, and he just cuffed me on the side of the head, clang on my helmet. And I looked at him and he said, wake up, you idiot. Don't look down. Oh no, all right. And as soon as the green light went, out you go. And because you're jumping out the back of the aircraft, you sort of hit the slipstream, and it's like going on a slippery slide. Because it just picks you up from behind, and you just exit that way. So you just go through the air. Great. But the second time you did it...
Great,
Yeah.
he says.
And
Great.
the parachute self-deploys or something? Is that
It
what
does,
happens?
because you've got your static line, which
Yeah.
is hooked up to the actual line itself through the centre of the aircraft, which then pulls your parachute. So you've got to count, like they do in the movies, 3,000, 1,000, 2,000, get to 3,000, and then you've got to look up to make sure your parachute has deployed.
Oh, fuck.
Because if it hasn't, you're in trouble. That's why you have a reserve chute.
Fair bit of trouble.
Correct. So at this point in time, you've fallen about 250 feet. Remember, we're at 1,000.
Not
So
many
now at
feet
about
left.
750 feet. So if you look up and your parachute's starting to deploy and you can hear it snap and bang and you think life is great, then you're good. Then you just sort of float. But if you have no parachute,
That's
then you've
the
got to deploy your reserve. And your hand is actually on the handle of your reserve chute anyway.
Yeah.
So as you're falling through the air, then you look up, no parachute, pull my reserve. Now, it takes about 500 feet for the reserve chute to fully deploy.
Fuck me.
So at this point,
This is giving me
That's
anxiety right
only
now.
250 feet left.
250 feet. If everything's right,
Yep.
you're at 250 feet. You've got enough time for it to go snap. You're looking around, the ground comes up, and you hit the ground.
Real quick.
And you live. And your descent rate's between 5 and 7 metres a second under a parachute. So there's no flaring like they do with a square rig to
Yeah.
actually land nicely with 1 foot and then just land. 5 to 7 metres a second, whichever way the wind is blowing you, is the way you land. Front, side, back.
Yep. Did you ever have to use the reserve?
No. No, but I was ready.
So that was the first jump.
Yes.
Why was the second one horrible? Because I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Oh, because you knew what was coming. You knew that all of a sudden.
Oh, okay, but,
reality
like,
hit.
nothing happened
You're
bad.
1,000 feet up. I've only got one chance of getting this right if I stuff it up. This is high. This is scary. I've realised that this is not real smart. And so all of a sudden, fear just takes over. But that was part of the deal, because once you can conquer that, that's another feather in your bow when it comes to understanding fear and how to conquer it.
Yeah.
And then you start jumping at night, which is another whole
What's
dimension.
that like?
Well, that's even more frightening.
You can't see the ground.
You can't see the ground. You don't know where anything is, because most jumps have to be done at night tactically, because the enemy's going to shoot you if you're coming down.
That's bad.
Under
You don't
canopy.
want that.
Well, that's pretty bad. So at night, and because the battalion was posted down in Sydney,
Yeah.
so you had to take off from Richmond, Western Sydney, and you had to fly up to Queensland to jump.
Oh, really?
Now, that takes about 6 to 8 hours to get there. And if you're going to jump before dawn, which is about 4:35, you're flying at 11 o'clock at night. No one sleeps. So by the time you exit the aircraft
You're fucked.
and hit the ground, absolutely. And so one exercise, that's what we did. We flew up, we exited the aircraft, and you have no idea where the ground is. And so at a point in time, and you sort
just
of count it
feel
off.
it or something.
Well, you know that you're getting close to the ground, your chute's deployed, yep, okay, I've got about 10 seconds, yeah, all right, I'm getting close. And then because you've got all your reserve chute and your main chute on your back, your actual pack that you carry is strapped to your legs. Because that's the only way to put it. You can't put it anywhere else. So if your pack's here, so then you've got to release your pack, because if you hit the ground at 5 to 7 metres a second...
With
descent
40
rate,
kilos
with
on your
40
legs.
kilos strapped on your legs, that's going to stop and you're going to continue. And you'll snap legs and everything else. So,
me.
at
So
a
how do you
point in
know
time-
when to get rid of it?
Well, you just guess it. So, well, you just know about 10 seconds under canopy, yep, it's about time. And you have a T-bar here, which you just release, and then that's on a 14-metre line, a lowering line, and your pack just tumbles away and then just sticks at the end of the line.
How do you, in nighttime, how do you know if your parachute's fucking deployed?
I was thinking that.
Good point. You'll hear
Thank
it
you.
first. You'll hear the big snap, and
Yeah.
you can just feel your descent slow.
Okay.
And because they jump generally with a slight bit of moonlight, you can always look up, and you can
Okay.
always just see a slight reflection of the silk anyway.
Yeah.
And so you can look, because you've got to look up and make sure your parachute's fully deployed as well, because it can be a partial deployment, and then you have to actually pop your reserve because your descent rate's too fast, and it's going to hurt you.
That was like one of the best stories I've ever heard. I feel like I'm in a fucking action movie. Like if
insane.
like anyone listening, the whole room we are recording in just stopped, and like people training, they're all like, "What the fuck?"
But
And if you have anxiety, I'm sorry, we just heightened you dramatically.
But you still haven't finished yet because you're still floating.
Oh my god, we're still going. This is
Well,
fucked.
you've lowered your pack.
Yeah.
So that's now swinging under you by 14 metres. That's the only way of knowing where the ground is. Now, remember, during daylight hours, you know which way you're travelling.
Yeah.
At night, you got no idea.
You fucking bump into each other.
Yes, you do. So you just float, you drop your pack, and you sort of turn your head on the side with your good ear, because most people have a good ear, with your good ear, and you're just listening for the slightest noise of your pack touching the ground. And it's just the lightest boop. As soon as you hear it, you know within about a microsecond you're going to hit the ground straight after it. And so you just brace, And as you hit the ground, you just roll. Whichever way you roll, and you don't know where you're going to roll. And then you just go...
You don't know what's under you either.
No. It's sky ground, arse, heels, nose. And you just lay there.
Can we just get a zoom in on my face right now? The fuck?
It's gonna hurt when you hit the ground sometimes.
What?
Well, it does, because you don't know where the ground is. So as you hit the ground, you tuck everything in and you just roll with it. And a lot of people have different theories.
Tuck and roll, people. There's
tuck
a
and
fucking...
roll. And that's all I do. All I used to do was just go very limp.
Yeah, and just...
As soon as my pack hit, I just almost faint.
Yeah.
And just allow myself to go limp like a puppet and just go with it. And just get on the ground, then just lay there, because then you've got to get your harness off and get out as fast as you can. But then you just lay there for a quick second, just flexing. Yep. There's no real pain. Yep, okay, I can move. Great. Get up and go.
Grab your gear and go to wherever your job is.
And because, like we said, it took that long to fly there, and that much effort and adrenaline pumping as well, that you're...
God, you'd be dumped by the end of it.
Correct. So one of the exercises we deployed early in the morning up at Shoalwater Bay, which is just out of Rockhampton, and our commanding officer, who was an outstanding leader, just wanted to prove the point that even though you are tired and spent, you still need to go and fight. So as we assembled as a battalion of 600, he then gave orders for a 57-kilometre advance to our next location.
So you just got a hump.
Got a hump. So 57 kilometres straight, and that took that morning right up until the following morning at about 1 or 2 in the morning. We finally got to our night location. Adrenaline was still pumping. Well, at that point it wore off, but you were that tired. People were just sort of marching along and just walking off the road, just falling asleep. I had injured myself, some ribs, and so I had to sort of half walk, cantered over and get to the end, but everyone did it.
So you fucking walked 57 kilometres looking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Pretty much.
Holy fuck.
But again, that was what was required.
Is what it is.
And I thought I was in bad shape, but our commanding officer on the same jump totally dislocated his shoulder. Popped it right out. He didn't tell anyone. He told the doctor. He popped it back in.
Yeah.
Put his pack on.
And just went.
And went 57 kilometres.
You cunts are insane. And
That's right.
Yep, sorry for swearing, Mum.
And at the end of the day, if he can do it,
everyone
and
can.
I only got a couple of sore ribs, you crack on. You just do it. Yeah.
I've got adrenaline from that.
Would have been hungry when you got to the finish line on that one.
Oh yeah, you eat on the move because you've got your ration packs and water. But when you get to the end, you just
when do you poop? On that, I'm just curious.
Well, when you have breaks, so they sort of advance at the same rate. So it's 5 kilometres.
Yeah.
10-minute break, 5 kilometres, 10-minute break.
Yep.
So during a 10 minutes.
That's poop time.
That's poop time, absolutely.
Poop time,
And then you just do a cat scratch.
Yep. Cat scratch. What's a cat scratch?
Like cats.
Oh yeah, just give it a quick.
With your shovel.
Yeah. Fluff it up a little.
Yep.
I don't have toilets.
Yeah.
Move on.
I just didn't know what a cat scratch was. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah.
There you go. Do a cat scratch. Fuck, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Did you ever jump socially outside of that?
No.
No.
Well, no, it scared me. Honestly,
you get worked up and anxious. If you knew you would jump the next day for practice or whatever you would call it, are you thinking? Fuck,
no, because you have to control your fear.
Yeah.
But
how do you do that? I'm like, how
you talked about that a few times.
Like you've said that, and what you just told us, I was like, holy fuck. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Like, how do you get it out into a mindset where you have to go, I'm going to jump 1,000 feet out of this fucking plane?
It all comes down to training, procedures, and the way you do your business.
Yeah.
So it's the same every time. So if you have a routine and you keep doing the same routine, that assists in alleviating fear, because everything you do is for a reason. And the way you check your equipment, the way you strap it on, the way everything happens, that the only thing that can go wrong here is a complete malfunction of a parachute. And then I can fix that because I have a reserve, I know how to deploy it, and I know how to get around it. A lot of people have different points of fear. Some people just didn't like flying. Some people just didn't like landing on the ground because there was a chance of serious injury. Some people didn't like the fact of the parachute wasn't going to open. My biggest fear was the 30 seconds between the red light extinguishing and the green light coming on.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point in time, if I could have climbed over everyone, knocked the pilot out, took over the aircraft and flew it back to base, I would have done it every time. My sense of self-preservation was so high. But funny enough, as the red light extinguished, absolute sheer panic, for about 28 seconds, and you just sort of have that feeling that it's about time. And as soon as the green light was just about to pop on, then complete calm, because you knew you had to exit right.
Yeah.
Because if you exit wrong, you're
fucked.
Because you're on the sides of the aircraft now on a Hercules.
On the side?
A C-130, that's right, side doors.
Wow.
So you're stepping out into a cyclone.
What's
it's going
that
into
like?
stepping into a cyclone, so you're stepping
the
out.
Engines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the slipstream. So as you got to force yourself out.
Yeah.
And if you go out wrong with an elbow up or a leg trailing, the slipstream's going to pick you up and start to spin you. And as you start spinning and your parachute's deploying, all you're going to do is just have all your risers, tangled up. So you spend most of your time pretending to pedal a bike, because that then gets you spinning to untangle. So if you come out straight and just slide down, you're right. And so that's all I concentrated on, was as you exit, you can actually fight the slipstream. So as it's pushing you this way, you can actually turn your body and fight. And then that just keeps you sort of straight enough so your parachute can deploy.
And that whole mentality, like you talk about, I'm a big believer in how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's got to translate into everything else you do as well, like in every other.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, you're right. And you just got to just trust in how you've developed as a person over your years, all the lessons in life that you've learned, and just fall back on your key points. And if you have a good set of values, always use that as a reference point, almost as your moral compass would be my point.
100%.
So have a moral compass, and if you have to make a decision or there is a threatening situation, always default back to your core values. And just think about it in a logical manner. And that's one of the key things too. You've got to think straight. But
in those situations where there's a lot of emotion,
that's right,
and you're freaking out, you have to be logical.
Correct, yeah. And so many times you just almost got to centre yourself, zen, deep breaths and all that, yeah.
My eyes are still like deer in headlights.
And the other thing you said I think was super cool, you got to spend a lot of time with really good leaders.
Absolutely. And some poor ones.
As well. And at the same time, you're in a position of leadership at certain times as well.
That's right, yes. And you are from the earliest time in the military, that's the whole deal, was to get people to become commanders and leaders. And so even as a small section of 8 men, you have a section commander who's a corporal, a section 2IC, second in command, who's a lance corporal, and they fight the battle at an 8-man level. So if you're attacking an enemy position, it's the corporal that makes decisions. And so as you step through the different ranks, your level of responsibility increases. And I was fortunate enough to be commissioned from the ranks to become an officer.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I started off my life as a private and became a section commander looking after 8 men, a platoon sergeant, which is really the administration and the discipline of a group of 30 men, then to a company commander, which commanded 150 men.
Wow.
And I did that here at Nogra, so that was something great. In fact, I commanded 100 men over in Timor as well, East Timor, as OC of support company.
Do you feel the pressure of responsibility then? Or is it something that you've just, because you've gone through and stepped through that process, you're like, I've got this? No, you always self-doubt. Because that's one of the key things, I think, of being a good leader. If you go in cocky, you're going to make mistakes. So I didn't mind fretting at night, because that was one of those things that kept you honest. And it made you double check things.
Correct, absolutely. You just went over the battle plan in your head, particularly in East Timor, to make sure things are right and think of all the nuances, but also not allow that to take over your whole life as well, because if you worry too much, you'll never sleep. You need to have your rest.
Yeah. What is it? Plan for the worst, hope for the... Oh, no. Hope for the... Yeah. I fucked myself. Hang on.
No, you're right.
What did I say?
Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, precisely.
Landed my plane for me.
And that's what happened. And again, because we deployed to East Timor, we trained so hard that when we finally got there, it just didn't feel real until we arrived on the docks, because up until then we did everything as we normally do. When you go deploying on an exercise, you do all the planning, everyone gets their orders, everyone understands their tasks and roles and responsibilities. Ammunition and rations and water are issued and all that sort of stuff. And it didn't hit home until I was told by the commanding officer, "Righto, Pete, you're going to lead a boarding party when we get to the docks at Dili to find a headquarters or find a space for our headquarters." And I said, yeah, sure, no worries, because that's what you do on an exercise. You train for that. Until we pulled up at the Dili docks and saw the human wreckage. And then it was just like, oh, this is now real.
This is real.
Because up until then, you'd be on an exercise area, say Shoalwater Bay, Rockhampton, and you'd step off the aircraft or step off the boat or step off the trucks, and the bush is nice and pristine, and we're here, and, then we move on. But there, it was just misery. And then it just realised, hey, this has now become very real. People were arresting bandits there and then in Dili. There were still dead people in the streets.
Really?
Everyone trying to evacuate themselves, trying to get on our boats.
Yep.
And it was just terrible. But because we arrived in time, and we saved so many others, so that was a good thing.
Yeah. That must be something you think's pretty cool looking back on or proud of.
Absolutely.
That you got to do such good work like that.
And it was the hardest thing was, and most people that sort of saw it all happening back in 1999, it was that 2-week period where all that terrible imagery was coming out of Dili and the other parts around East Timor of the Indonesian military, but also all the bandits destroying villages and killing people, and that was on the media everywhere. We knew we were going. That was the thing, but it was all clearances through the United Nations, the Timorese government and the Australian government that we had to wait. So every day we'd go to the 3rd Battalion there in Sydney and sit on our packs. Everyone was ready to go. Weapons, we had live ammunition, we were just sitting there every day. And we can see the media, we can see it unfolding, and we're saying we need to be there, we can make a difference. But because of, again, it was just the way it was, there had to be all the agreements done from the highest levels. But once that was given, then of course we launched and we got in there as fast as we could. But that was very frustrating.
Yeah, it would have been tricky because you're on the edge the whole time waiting.
Correct.
To go.
And it certainly hurt my wife as well, because me and everyone else, because you'd spend the whole day at work just sitting around, just waiting, and then the word would come back, nah, not going today, come back tomorrow.
Say goodbye.
I'd turn up again.
Family.
Absolutely. Every night was,
Fuck,
back.
that's heartbreaking.
And it was tough, but then again, we put it in perspective. At least I'm saying goodbye to my wife every day. I'm not dying like those poor buggers over in East Timor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
so in perspective, okay, we can work through that. But Kerry said it was tough because she just didn't. She wanted me to go. She said, just stay there. Don't even come home anymore. Just stay at work and go when you go. And that was a fair call. I had no issue with that. That made good sense.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Do you think when you're, as a leader, when you're in a position of leadership, did you find it important to lead by example? Like you talked about that lad with the shoulder.
Yeah, Jono, absolutely. And if you cannot lead by example, you shouldn't be in the job of leading, honestly. And that's how I've always done my business. Yeah. So if the soldiers were a little bit confused on what they had to do, what's the boss doing? He's got everything right. Okay, he's carrying his pack, he's patrolling correctly. Yep, he's doing everything right. Okay, best I do the same. And you just can't compromise on that. And every day, you had to be shaved at a certain time and everything else. It was too easy as a commander to say, I'm busy doing paperwork, I can't do physical training with the troops.
Yep.
No. Every day you have to be out there with the soldiers and doing it just as hard as them.
Yep.
And then there's no excuse.
I bet they would have appreciated that too, no doubt, whether they said it or not.
Correct. And you do sort of get feedback years after the event.
Yep.
And also part of being a leader is showing, what's the word here? You have to adhere to the chain of command. So whatever the commanding officer, who's a colonel, says, you talk to the commander, you argue with the commander, and at the end of the day, when he makes a decision, he says, okay, gentlemen, this is what we're doing. Then you salute and say, no worries, sir, and off you go. And you sell that plan like it's your own because it was the commander. So you remain loyal to the chain of command.
Yeah.
So you don't go back to the soldiers saying, oh, guess what the boss wants us to do? Oh, the commanding officer wants us to do this. No.
You're 100% on it.
It is.
Even if you're not 100%
Correct.
on it. Yeah.
My plan is we're doing this. And that's all part of being loyal to the chain of command. And there was not an incident, but a little drama we had. I was commanding support company here in 6th Battalion. We had to go up to Shoalwater Bay and prepare for a battalion live fire shoot. And that's really a big event. It takes about 3 weeks to set it all up with all the targetry and all the different areas that you've got to sort of, get prepared. So I was in charge of that, getting it all sorted. So whilst I was up there, the battalion decided to put on the 40-kilometre route march, as they do. So all that is just everyone's packs on their back, off they go. It takes, 5, 6, 7 hours, whatever it takes to complete. So they all did it. Here we are, support company, working our guts out, 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. And then the other company commanders, the other majors, complained to the commanding officers saying, oh, well, Pete Sheldon's up at Shoalwater Bay with his company and they haven't done 40 kilometres. We want him to do it as well. And so the CO rang me up, as we always do, just chat every couple of days. And he said, oh, by the way, mate, before we get up there, and it was like a week to go, he said, I need your company to do a 40-kilometre route march. And I said, why is that, sir? He said, well, the whole battalion's done it, so by the time I get up there, you also are to do it. And I said, sure, but you do understand, we're working our guts out. And gave him all the, and he just said, so, make sure it happens. Yes, sir, no worries. So, correct. So I told the company, right, we need to do a 40k route march, and everyone's going, oh, are you kidding? And I said, no, everyone's doing it, and by the time the battalion gets up here, everyone expects us to do it too. And of course, everyone's just hanging their heads. But we'd worked so hard, and I just thought, this is wrong. But I didn't articulate that. So as I said because normally you have a whole group of people who have got injuries through exercise or just, because they've got some sort of cough or lurgy. And so they drive the support vehicle that has, all the stretchers on board and stuff like that. So I said to the driver, mate, we've got to do 40Ks. I said, every 5 kilometres, make sure you call a halt at 4 and we'll call it 5. And he goes, I said, every 5 kilometres, make sure you're driving 4 and call it. Say it's 5. And we get it done. And we did 32 kilometres rather than 40. Now, the soldiers didn't know that because you walk at a set rate, because everyone's dead tired. Everyone was walking slow anyway. So most people figured, because you do about 5 kilometres an hour on a normal march. And so they were doing it probably about 4 kilometres or even 3.5 because everyone's just dragging their butts. So they didn't know any better. So at the 50-minute mark, they're getting a break. They didn't know it was 4 kilometres. So at the end of it, we only did 32 out of 40, and I just didn't say a word. Said to the commanding officer, sir, we've achieved your 40Ks. Done.
Everyone on the team thinks it's 40.
That's right.
We're all good.
I knew damn well that they probably knew it wasn't afterwards because the driver's mates with everyone else. So of course they were talking. We said, oh, mate, I'm only calling it short, But no one came back to me and said, good move, boss. They just accepted it and said, right, okay. But that's just part of command as well. Sometimes you just got to do,
cut a bit of slack.
Cut a bit of slack because they worked their guts out. If they weren't working, we would have done 40 in a heartbeat.
And that comes like that whole chain of command being loyal to it. You got to trust that person above you, and there's got to be a trust down the chain as well.
Correct, absolutely. And that's a very hard thing to achieve because it all comes down to, each person, how they interpret that, but it's all about integrity and loyalty as well. So,
comes back to your moral compass, your values.
Correct, absolutely, yes. So I had no issue with that. And I think that's why I survived so long in the military because my personal values seem to echo Army's ethos anyway. So to me, it was a nice fit.
Was that drilled into you from your young age with your dad being in the military and your family being so military, or do you, looking back now, obviously?
I think you can sort of say yes because my mum, and she's still alive, is the most honest person in the world. She cannot do anything that is illegal. She even found, like years ago, I remember as a young kid, she found $10 on the side of the road and she picked it up and first thing she did, straight into the post office. Look, I found this. Can you just post it in the window to make sure the right person gets it?
That's unreal.
Brilliant. And as a kid, it was like, that could have been $10 worth of lollies.
That's a lot of red frogs, Mum.
That's right. And then you sort of, go, oh, that just sucks. But when you look back at it, of course, that's just great.
That's just instilling your values.
Correct, yeah. And same as my dad, he was just wonderful in terms of just the way he dealt with us. He was very fair. And back then, most families were very much the same. The fathers were standoffish, but you knew that you were loved. And you knew they can go to dad for advice and he'd give you fair and honest and frank advice. So I think that helped. And the Army certainly developed it, because you just saw the good in a lot of commanders and just dragged that from them. And if you had a bad commander, and you had many, then you just look at their good points and say, yeah, I'll take that. In the bad points, I'll never make that mistake. I'll never do that. And be honest to yourself.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's incredible.
It's unreal. Moving from... Because you went from infantry to sort of HR, is that what you said you did?
Yeah, yep.
What was it like having to make the decision, or was the decision kind of made for you moving from infantry into...
It's all part of your planning of your career. That's right, yeah. As you move through the ranks...
Forever.
Correct, yeah. So as you move through the ranks, you've got to go out and do other postings in terms of other jobs to actually round out your profile so you can then become a senior warrant officer or a senior commander, as in generals. And so you've got to go and do your time in a battalion, then you go to a training establishment and train soldiers. You then go to another unit that sort of supports other units like a headquarters. And so you have a wide and variety amount of jobs just so you can get experience. And some jobs you do really good in because you know it, and other jobs you've got to learn it the hard way. So, and that was what it was like with human resource. I turned up and I had to be the career advisor for the infantry corps. Now, the infantry corps is the largest corps in our army. It sits at about, I don't know now, probably 2,500, 3,000. But my job being the major, I had to look after 275 warrant officers who were then going for the rank of Warrant Officer Class 1, which was the senior warrant officer. Out of that cohort of 275, only 2 or 3 would be selected each year, if that. So then you had to rank them from 1 through to 275. And then get back to every single one and say the reasons why they were good or not as good.
Sorry, you were number 274.
Correct,
you were
yeah.
number 273.
Yeah, that's right. So then you had to present each warrant officer to a board
Yep.
and argue, why they should be promoted But all very interesting because then you had to then liaise with all the units that these warrant officers were posted at.
Yep.
You were as a major speaking to lieutenant colonels because they had their little pet loves as well. That the warrant officer blog should be the next RSM, the regimental sergeant major of the army. He's that good.
Yep.
And then you say, well, I'm looking at him now and he's sort of
not.
number 10 on the list. I've got 10 other guys better than him. Yeah, but that was just all part of
And
being honest and open and frank.
And you said, you got to spend some time training soldiers as well?
I did, yes.
Was that in Kapuka or?
No, I was actually posted down to Duntroon.
Oh, wow.
So I was an instructor there, and my job was looking after, they call it third class. So you have 3 classes coming in for 18 months, or a staff cadet coming in for 18 months. Third class, second class, first class. Each class is 6 months in length. And so I looked after them for their first 6 months in the military.
Yeah.
So I had a staff of about 13 sergeants who were all instructors, all different corps.
Yep.
And that's infantry, artillery, armoured, whoever. And so all we did was introduce them to the military and then get them prepared to hand over to second class after 6 months. Fantastic. And also on the selection panel. So we travelled Australia doing the selection boards for entry into Duntroon, which was fantastic in itself because it was a day of selection skills, doing interviews. They had to solve practical problems. They had to write, out stuff. And then the board sat at the end with each individual talking about their wants and needs and everything else. And that was really good because it gave me a good sense of how Australia was travelling in terms of young kids. Because we looked at the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
Anyone that was graduating from high school or they finished a trade, wanted to become an officer, you knew that most of them weren't going to actually make the grade, but for the majority, whatever they're going to do, they're going to do well.
Yeah.
So I actually came away from that feeling quite positive about the situation Australia is in. Whereas a lot of people lament, our youth is this, our youth is that. I'm thinking, no, we've got some really good operators out there.
Yeah.
And they just have to find their feet. And but I just loved it. That was...
It would have been a cool task, tasked with helping people through their first 6 months.
And it was. And again, it was all by leadership.
Yep.
You had to lead by example. So all our sergeants and myself, every time you saw a staff cadet, you had to be dressed correctly. You had to address everyone correctly. And it was just being there and making sure everyone did the right thing. And a lot of young cadets could not cope for that first couple of weeks. But I just remember my time back in 1981. I didn't cope for the first 6 weeks.
Did you ever have any good punishments you'd give anyone? Dig a hole, fill it back up, wash a rock.
Yep.
Wash a rock, is that really?
I've heard of that
It was. Until they had a look at the whole punishments in defence and realised that arbitrary punishments like that are in fact aren't legal. They're very illegal. And so now there's no such thing, which is good because, it came down to each individual.
Yep.
So a commander could make up the dumbest punishments. And that used to happen to me. Like here at Enoggera, at the back there next to Mount Couth is Enoggera Hill. Most people know where that is.
Yep.
I was, as a young soldier, I was in reconnaissance and surveillance platoon. And if you stuffed up throughout the day, you'd have to then carry a big D-shackle, and these are the big ones that are on the back of tanks, so they're about 12 kilos in weight, but you had to race it up to the top of Enoggera Hill during your lunch break bring back the next one. But they're all painted different colours, so you couldn't take the same one, walk 100 metres and come back and say, that was hard. So, the sergeant would say, take this one, come back with the black shackle. I've got an hour. It takes about 45 minutes to climb this stupid hill. And so you just hump up there, you hump back, missed your lunch, bring back the black shackle.
Yep.
And he'd say, right, you went wrong? Yes. As you walk away, no, I don't got no idea. But they were illegal punishments. But back then,
they were a thing.
It was a thing.
It is what it is, babe.
It is what it is, yeah. And you just accepted that was your lot in life as a digger.
Yep. So I'm sure I always remember stories of my mates talking about having to wash some rocks in their early times. I always thought that was hilarious.
But I did, while we were in Timor, no names, of course, but there was a young soldier in support company that got himself in some trouble. And because back then we started digging drop pits for our toilets, but the high water table, the water table was that high that all our people that looked after, the health and well-being of everyone realised that if we started pooing in all the drop pits, it was going to then poison the water table.
Of course.
Because people were drawing water from wells and everything else. So then we had to come up with another method of disposing of all our waste. And so I went to the Pioneer platoon, and pioneers are like the jack of all trades. They can build things, they can blow things up, they can, do all sorts of stuff, weld and do basic construction. And I said to the fellas, can you make up pans out of 44-gallon drums? Oh, yeah, we can do that. We can weld this. We can. And I said, right, so we need to make thunder boxes, need to have pans underneath. And we need to then have a system where it's like the old dunny man. He'd come along, pull out the pans, put them on the back of quad bikes, because we had quad bikes in a parachute battalion with small little trailers on the back. Take them down the beach, burn them off, and then come on back. And so the pioneers come up with this fuel. It's aviation fuel. It's some other fuel mixed together with a few other bits and pieces, their little specialties they had, and it becomes this thick goop. And so that burnt long enough to then dissolve all the poo, which was good. And there was nothing left but just...
But someone had to collect it.
Correct. So there's one young digger who really made some terrible errors in judgment. For the whole week, he was the poo man. That's all he was. He was affectionately known as Shit Boy. So Shit Boy, each day, had to empty the pans, because it was the funniest thing, because you had to then put two pans on the back of this quad bike, a small trailer. There was no lids for them. So you had to put it in low gear, four-wheel drive, no throttle.
Hope the wind's going that way.
And just rock along, and you can see the pan slopping.
That's the best.
But it was a good punishment. He never made another mistake. It was pretty simple. So for a week, he had to burn the poo, and then it was all good.
And I bet no one else wanted to make mistakes, because they didn't want to burn poo note either.
Well, yeah, but then you had to share it around. Share the love. Even I did a poo burn, as lead by example. Yeah, I even did it once. So, just to say to the soldiers, I can do it too.
Yeah. Fucking hell, that's a great punishment.
Yeah, you definitely need to wear some gloves on that one, I reckon.
I don't think we ever did. You had a stick. You just had a big stick.
Well, I'm thinking is I'm just gonna implement some of these punishments with clients next week, so no one piss me off.
Fuck. What was it like transitioning out of the infantry or out of the army into where you are now? A
good question. Hard, I think, and I thought it was going to be great, because I spent 34 years in. And I must admit, I was getting very tired. I was still enjoying going to work, but I was just like, it's time to leave. And so I got home and I said to my wife, Kerry, that's it, I'm now going to retire. Whatever age I was, 51 I think I was, I'm going to retire, I'm going to do nothing. And she said, let's see how this works for you. So after about 2 weeks of lying on the couch in my underpants...
You've earned it.
I woke up one day with corn chips all down my chest with Oprah on. And I figured, this is just not working, this is not right.
Was it legitimately Oprah?
Yep. So anyway, no, it wasn't. But anyway, but I was lost. And I didn't have a sense of purpose. And I read quite a lot, and sure enough, as you leave, you have all these briefings as well, like the Leave Army package. And they talk about things like that. And so I realised that, yes, I needed a purpose in life. And so then, funny enough, we just happened to be driving back from town one day, and the bus in front of us had a sign that said, we need drivers. And I just looked at it, and so as soon as I got home, I just rang him up and said, you're after some drivers. An application online. 2 weeks later, I was out at Willawong on the south side of town doing a 6-week course to drive a bus. So there it is. So now I drive buses as a casual driver for the city council, and great job. It is a fantastic job, because it's a no-brainer. You don't have to think too hard.
How do you know which route? How do you know where the bus goes?
You get trained, and you do. I don't know why they say route, but they say route instead. Route. They give you route training, so they actually give you all the routes.
So if you're on the 513, the 515, you know where the 515 goes.
Yeah.
Is there signs? Is there Google Maps, or what are we doing?
No, it's not Google Maps. But when you drive around town...
This is important.
When you drive around town or out in the suburbs, you'll see a small sign stuck on posts. Look for it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's a little yellow sign with black writing.
And it'll say 5. They'll say the bus route.
But after 6 or so months of driving, then you get to know them all.
Yep,
And so
yep.
now they can just say, Pete, you need to come in, you need to do like a 3:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Got a favourite route?
That's, yeah, no. no. I was going to say that sounds like a bust dude. If I actually say I've got a favourite round, I'm
Yeah,
a
I
bust
was going to be like that.
That
I'm not going
3:30 is
there.
a good one.
No, I can tell you about my favourite weapons to shoot, but not a favourite bus route.
What's
Yeah,
your favourite
yeah,
weapons?
yeah, let's-
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, do you still do firearm stuff or anything?
No,
these days,
no,
or-
but gee, I miss that. Honestly, that's one of the joys of being in infantry, is to be qualified in all the different weapon systems, from a pistol through rifles through to machine guns,
Yep.
grenades, the Claymore mine, which is a great thing,
Yep.
shoulder-fired rockets.
Do you get to do them?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So all of the above.
So what was your favourite?
My favourite probably would have been the M60 machine gun as a young gunner.
Yeah, wow.
Because that was just the firepower of a section.
Yep.
And so that supported the other 8 or 9 men.
Yep.
So, moving up towards the enemy.
Yep.
And you were on a flank or in the middle, laying down suppressing fire.
Yep, yep.
So you got to just go psycho on a big machine gun and just lay lead in a direction.
Wow.
I'm really glad you finished that with the lay fire, whatever, with a machine gun, like a big one. Because all those other words you used, I was like, oh, yeah, I know what he's talking about. Nope. Cool.
And you'd have to hump that around the battlefield or exercise field, that big...
Yes.
What do you call it?
The M60.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep. That was about 12 kilos in weight,
Yep.
No.
Plus ammunition.
plus ammunition.
Yeah, wow.
And you had to patrol all day
Yep.
and carry it as well.
Wow.
And you couldn't carry it like Hollywood.
Yep. It doesn't work like that?
No, you see them slung over their shoulder, hanging onto the barrel.
Yep, not quite
No,
like...
no, it's dropped down. You carry it like a proper weapon,
Yeah.
ready to employ at a moment's notice. So as a young soldier, you're carrying weight all day.
Yeah.
So it's a 12.5 kilo machine gun, 45 kilo pack on your back.
Gets heavy eventually.
It does. Oh, yeah. But as a young man, you don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it.
That's just
Man,
normal, right?
That's normal. Yeah. You just sleep well at night.
Yeah, I bet you do. Now, I'm super curious. We've got the diorama that you make
Sure.
that will pop up somewhere in here, thanks to Jason.
Yep.
A little bit louder. Tell us about that. How did you get involved in that?
Oh, like most young kids, growing up, you always play with models. Most kids always used to, make a model here and there.
Yep.
And so I used to do that, before I joined the army. And then even when I got married and Kerry and I were living together before we had our kids, then I started playing around with some model kits because I thought, I still love it. But then I got so busy with kids and busy deploying that everything just got put away and actually just got thrown in the bin eventually. And then I left the army, and then as part of my finding myself again, I was just saying to my daughter, Rihanna, I just said, I'd love to get back into modelling because I did enjoy that. And she said, well, why don't you? I said, I've got to buy the kits, I've got to do that. And so for one birthday, she just said, here's your model, here's your glue, get into it. And so I thought, okay, I'll have a crack at this because I hadn't touched it in about, 35 years. And I said, well, if my hands are still not shaky and I've still got a decent eye, I'll certainly do it. So I made my first model, about 3 years ago, loved it again. I thought, well, that's it. I'm getting back into this. And there it was.
Wow.
And because nowadays the internet is so good, so many podcasts and so many YouTube videos when it comes to tutorials, you just type in anything you want to do. How do you paint a face?
And that's how you've self-taught.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And the people out there, some people are just so gracious with their time, to actually put it all down in such great detail and self-explanatory,
Well, I think we might need the Pete YouTube for how to make them as well soon by judging that and what it looks like. That thing's unbelievable.
But it helps a little bit, I guess, being in the military because you understand, how things should look.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
if you pack a vehicle, it should look like this. Everything's got to be tied down. The soldiers have to carry weapons. So wherever a soldier is, a weapon's got to be close at hand.
Yep.
So it does help having a little bit of a military background.
Yep.
It doesn't help all entirely, but it sort of gives you a bit more of an edge where you just know what looks right, what doesn't quite work.
That looks pretty
And
right.
you're basing it from actual times or in the military, things that have actually happened.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's just part of the fun, is just the research.
So you're actually going in and researching that event that's happened
Yeah.
and getting to know everything about it. And
That's right, yeah, and just do your own take on it
Yep.
because it's all just the artist's interpretation.
Yep,
But
yep.
if it's the Special Air Service and Long Range Desert Group in the desert in the
Yep.
Second World War, they've operated together. So you just make up a fictitious thing,
Yep.
model it, and
Sick.
yeah. But it's all I said, and it's just part of just me in retirement. Yeah, just a bit of fun.
Still keeping you busy.
Well, that's right. And since I'm not shaking yet, I still have a reasonable eyesight. It just
You
works.
must be using a microscope or something.
Yeah, just
The
like
details unreal.
jeweler's glasses.
Yep.
So it magnifies, I think, by about 5.5 to 10 times magnification.
Yep.
But you need that when you're sort of painting eyes at only a quarter of a millimetre wide sort of thing. Yeah.
Wow.
That's unreal.
We harmonised that
We
well.
definitely
Yeah, it was good,
together.
no?
Yeah,
And what else do you get up to nowadays for your retirement to keep you busy?
Well, it's basically drive buses.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you actually retired?
Yeah.
Semi-retired.
retirement.
So I drive buses, obviously. Come to the gymnasium.
Yes,
Here,
this glorious place.
And it is, yep. It's been an absolute joy being here.
Yep.
That was
Do you
another
train
thing.
with your daughter?
I train with my daughter,
Yep.
and like we were talking previously, what a privilege.
Yep.
How many guys get to say that at 56 years of age? I
Yep.
train with my daughter.
Yep.
Brilliant. I love it. And but it was Rihanna that got me back to the gym because I said when I left the military, I'm never going to lift another weight in anger.
Yep.
That's it. I'm going to go old. I'm going to go fat.
Yep.
I'm going to get to at least 280 kilos, and I was going to be awesome. And I tried really hard to get there, and I did a pretty good job. And then Ree just said one day, gee, you're putting on a bit of pudding there, Dad. You want to come to the gym? And I said no, outright. It was a hard no. I said, hell no. But then I thought about it, and then she actually got me, I think, a 6-month membership or something like that, or 1 month membership actually for my birthday. She said, "Come along and train with me." The first day, near on killed me. It was Jamie, and look, he was really nice, and he still is a wonderful man, but he just worked me a little bit hard. and I was really suffering. I actually almost threw up in the gutter, and it was very awful. But
You don't hold back in your sessions either, bro.
Well, no,
You
I
fucking
don't.
Push.
and that was part of half the issue. But I realised how much I did love it.
Yeah.
And I thought, what an idiot, saying I'm just going to walk away and do nothing for the rest of my life. And so now, I come back to the gym. I've now lost a fair bit of weight, which is lovely. I probably need to lose at least another 10 kilos and I'll be happy. But at 56, that's fine.
Yeah. And I think it's super. I don't want to say getting older, not because you're definitely not what I consider old yet. It's really cool to see training and seeing it important in your life as well. Like you can actually see the benefits of it. And
Oh, look, and even for just your mental health aspects. And as you fellows know, you're in the game. That's part of everything when it comes to a mental health plan. It always is said, isn't it? Almost the first thing. Fitness has to be there. And it is important. And even for your own well-being, even if it doesn't give your outlook a better outlook on life, you just feel better within yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Once you start losing weight and clothes start to fit better,
feel better.
It
Do
is
you
good.
still have any involvement today with the military or?
Not directly, but indirectly, absolutely. I talk to a lot of mates, and we have chance meetings. We just bump into town. Anzac Day is always a good way of finding people.
That must be an important day to you.
It is. Oh, very important. Yes, because you turn up with all your medals on, and and every year the lies get bigger and bigger, and the stories get wilder and wilder. But that's part
Do you like
of
to
the
sit a
deal.
young? You see a young soldier, 18, 19, sit him down and pull him under your wing and maybe just make a bit more up than what used to be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean we were legends in our own lifetime, but everyone still accuses me of doing things I've never done in my life. And for me, I don't drink, and I've only been drunk probably 3 or 4 times in my life, if that. As a young man. And that was part of the deal when I first joined was drinking. That was big culture in the military. So at the end of the day, you'd all march down, the 8 of you in a section, or march up to the boozer, the pub, on base, and everyone would get written off for the night. So I tried it a few times. I actually didn't like the taste of beer. And I didn't like waking up with a hangover. So I just thought, well, what is the problem? What's the point of this? It doesn't work. So I chose not to drink. But because I was always there with our mates, because we all lived here at Enoggera, we always went into town on a Friday and Saturday night and went off, as young soldiers always do and continue to do so. I was always with them. I was the designated driver. I talk to some of my mates now, I was the biggest pisshead of all. And I'm saying, fellas, I was the
one
designated
time.
driver.
I was the one that took you home.
I was drinking the Cokes, remember? No, mate, no, you were just as pissed as us. Well, no, I wasn't. And they're even telling my children that. And Mike and Reno, they just look at me and go, yeah, whatever. I don't think so. Yeah, your dad, you should have seen him. He was just a freak. Well, no, he was actually very sober. That's why I never got in trouble. I was smart.
That's amazing. That's amazing stories.
So cool. Awesome, bro. Well, I think that's pretty cool. You got an amazing story there. We should probably get you back on and do way more stories. But
Sure, I'd love to.
we have 10, which is now the 10 biggest questions
Oh,
you've
right.
ever asked.
Oh, this is
Previous
serious.
was your biggest.
Sure, okay.
We've had about an hour and a half of time, and now you have
Really?
the
Has
10
it gone,
biggest.
it's gone that fast?
Even longer, bro. About an hour and 45.
You are kidding me. See, I did say I like talking.
It's incredible. So, this is a two-part question. You
Sure.
have two options. Option one.
These are all rapid fire too, by the way. We
Oh,
forget.
right. So
Option one. Can
answer
you
without notice.
fit your fist in your mouth? Option two, if you can't or don't think you can, how much can you fit inside Brandon's mouth?
Are we talking fists?
Your fist in your mouth, can you fit it? If not, how much can we put in that mouth?
Is this metaphoric?
No,
this
no,
is
it's
real.
like live
Like
demonstration.
he's ready.
Right,
Yeah, he
okay.
wants it in there.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I can't put my own fist in my mouth.
Would you like to try? It's open and ready for you.
I would like to try.
Yes.
But I know where my hand has been.
He doesn't care.
No, I would say pass on that, definitely.
Okay, fair. I mean, I'm not embarrassed.
I was going to give you some tips on how to get in there. If you're
We have done it.
the curl is important.
It is. And then it's just, I'm
then
not the
force.
best choice because like my gag reflex is fucked.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I've got like other issues there. But we gave it a good shot.
Yeah.
So how come this session's turned into fisting?
Well, it's just like I said, it's random.
Right, okay.
It goes
We
all
like to
over.
live on the edge.
No, sure. No. I'm,
You're like, I'm cool. I'm
no,
cool.
no, I'm cool with this.
What's your biggest regret?
We say rapid fire, but we mean they're
Think
not
about
going
it.
to be. Yeah, they're not going to
Probably joining the army straight from high school.
be. Really?
I should have gone and got a job.
Yep.
Perhaps, some form of anything before I joined up, just to get a bit more life experience.
Yep.
Because that first couple of years really took me a while to mature.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest regret. Yeah.
It's also, sorry, there's more questions after that one. But
That's
you,
okay.
you go.
Who's the most attractive person in the world?
My wife.
Oh, Ben.
Suck up.
Well played.
I'm the only one still answers something different.
Yeah, you were. Where will you be / what will you be doing 10 years from now?
Probably exactly what I'm doing now. Just enjoying life and loving my family and being here at the gym.
Yes. What day is your bin day?
I don't have a bin day.
You don't have a bin day.
Live in apartments.
Yeah, that was I had the same problem when we did this.
Yeah.
Wonder when their bin day is.
Oh,
They have a bin day.
I don't know. I just throw it in the bin.
And then it goes.
Yeah, there it goes.
Magic bin.
I really don't know.
It's not a magic bin.
It is. It
Well,
just
how do you know
magically
it's not?
Big.
I suspect
You're
it's
right.
a Monday. I think
Correct.
it's a Monday, but I don't know.
He doesn't know when it goes, but he knows it goes.
Because someone magically appears and takes it away.
Correct. Magic bin.
There you go.
Thank you. Now, if you could only squat or deadlift for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Deadlift.
Good choice.
You know we have a deadlift comp coming up December 12th.
I know you keep trying me to get into these comps.
And I think
No,
it's
you're
for
doing
you.
good.
Oh, no, I think
You
it's
haven't
for
got me there yet, though.
Not yet, though. I
How
love
long
the
have you
word
tried?
yet.
How long have
Since
you
you've
tried?
started.
That's right.
And I will continue.
And keep going. I love your effort. I think it's
We're
marvelous.
about 4 weeks out from the next one.
Sure, yeah, keep
Pete,
telling me.
Pete, why don't you do it?
Why?
Yeah.
You would love it.
Probably.
Yeah.
So do it. You're in. I heard it.
What do you...
No, probably is not a hard yes.
No,
No, it's very close.
It's
to
yes.
yes.
Oh, that's
It borders more of the yes than the no.
that's
it's
why
very
you guys
close
keep
to
getting in trouble, I bet. I heard yes. I
Legitimately.
definitely heard yes. Yeah,
Yes,
I heard that.
yes.
It was yes.
What are you most thankful for?
Being alive.
What's one thing on your bucket list?
Oh, many things. Bucket list has to go to Antarctica.
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good one.
I'd love to dive in Antarctica.
Of course you would.
Yeah. That would be fucking cool.
It would be cold.
Yeah.
even.
That would be awesome. And do a cold water swim.
What are you thinking?
Well, you're diving, you're in a dry suit.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You swim,
I
you
was
go
like-
nude. We're going nude when we do it. What did you want to do when you were younger, before the army? Was there
Before the
something?
army? No, it was only the military. Only
Yep.
the army, and the second option was police.
Yep. What is your greatest fear?
I have to say spiders.
Oh,
I've got to
right.
be honest. I've got to be honest.
Brandon was genuine in thinking you brought a spider in that thing.
Yeah, so for everyone listening, there's what is
Diorama?
Diorama, thank you. Like, he came in with a towel over it, and I'm like, it's dark. There's a snake or a fucking tarantula in there. If that was the case, I was like, I'm piss bolting because I'm shit scared of spiders. Like, you know those movies where you get the tarantula coming
Yeah.
over? Oh, man, that like... It just replayed in my head. I was fucking freaking out. But I'm glad it wasn't.
No, me too.
Yeah. So
Ordered in
that's
for
good to it's good to know that we're both scared of spiders.
Yeah. And I'd like to say shout out. We have our first audience today.
We do have our first audience today. Thank you for joining us. If Jason wants to swing that camera around and they all try to escape now. No, cool. Thank you. We will be opening up more live audience spaces as if we had.
Always room.
There's always room. So
More is more.
More is correct. Or more is always more. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, but now I do.
Do you know how much the right amount of more is?
No.
More.
Always
There
more.
you go.
Yeah. We keep it
So I'm
toes.
glad I came today just for that single jam. Now I can go
You
home
can actually
happy.
you can use
I
that
am
if
fulfilled.
required.
I will.
Later
I'll be
on.
using that.
Quote us.
Say
I
to my
think-
wife, more is more, darling.
Yes.
Exact. More of everything.
Yeah, more of everything.
And I would always like more.
That's it.
You can add that to your toolbox with the truckload that you carry from your life experience. And honestly, that was one of the most incredible podcasts I believe we've done. And listening to your...
Oh, gentlemen, thank you so much for that. Yeah, much
No,
appreciated.
there's so much, nuggets of gold that people can take away and apply from just listening to you talk. And as we said, we could listen to you for fucking days. I'm scared we could be here for days. So we'll have to wrap it up now. We'll definitely get you back on.
Oh, I'd love to
Thank
come
you so much for bringing that in. I can't say that word.
Diorama.
Diorama.
I think it's Japanese. I'm pretty sure it's
Diorama.
Japanese.
Diorama. I feel like Anchorman. Diorama. But thank you for bringing that in. Thank you for giving up your time for us and all our
pleasure.
listeners. And if anyone wanted to get in contact with you about your story or even about those models, what's the best way to get in contact?
See, I'm not on social
media.
media.
Yeah, I was going to say.
See,
got an
I'm
email?
a bit gone. I'm out
You got
there.
a PO box? You want us to write your letter?
Maybe contact here through the gym. Yeah,
Done.
that might be easier.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Easiest.
Slide into them FB DMs.
that's
we
it.
Gotcha.
That would be fine.
Mate,
You know what
thank
that
you
is?
so much. We'll definitely be chatting soon. He's like, what the fuck's a DM?
I'll just smile and nod. That's all you do. Smile and nod.
Oh, thank you so much, Pete.
Thank you.